as you invited us to this meeting today, where you are discussing a lot of what's next on digital and how to adapt to that, and as we saw in Douglas' presentation, more, let's say, tech companies are adopting different ways of working. We thought that a reflection on a bit on leadership and how leadership should evolve in these new times was worth the time, So what I will do today over the next more or less hour would be to walk you through the findings of our latest book, which is the Journey of Leadership, which is pretty much what we did is we synthesize a lot of the information we had from our forums, which is sessions of short groups of CEOs where they share their core issues, and we created a new framework of what we believe should be the leadership attributes in this new century. So if you are like myself, who was business trained in the early 2000s and late 90s, we are of the generation that was trained under the command and control leadership style, and in our times, GE was the example of success that has a culture, a very command and control culture, and if you don't perform over certain metrics, you're out, etc. And that framework or that management approach, I would say, worked well until half of this century, but as digital especially started to arrive to businesses, but also new ways to use data with cloud, etc., the demands of the workforce has changed, and hence the leadership attributes have to change, And what we found, or the overall message that you will see, is that what's more needed is a more human approach to leadership, In the workforce of today, especially in the new generations, you start seeing some shift. People more than direction, they look more for inspiration, and people like to self-discover. And the nature of the jobs where we have our people on are always going to be more creative in a sense, more problem solving in a sense, that more basic repeatable tasks that are going to be automated or that we're aiming to automate. And in this, so they're looking for more inspiration instead of direction. They're looking more for purpose and meaning instead of financial rewards in a sense, and they look for companies who care and for leaders that role model, and in certain things it's very different and fundamentally different from what we have learned, So what happened to us as leaders that were raised under command and control structure, now we receive all these fresh talents with new skills. We need to adapt, we need to unlearn and relearn, And within that logic, what we see is that when you see these more human approaches, it goes under a simple logic of two key attributes that a modern CEO or a modern leader should have. The first one is the ability to lead himself and to be always the best version of himself, so he can inspire others. And the second one is characteristics on leading others. So if you go in this first bucket, we see 6 traits that we believe modern leaders should develop, and then another 6 attributes that they should embed in the organization. When we go with the first one, we see humility, confidence, selflessness, vulnerability, resilience, and versatility. This is This is the 6 key attributes that we see repeated the most when we're seeing these CEO asks, when we're seeing these CEOs where they needed to improve the more. No? So in humility, the first thing we see is that in this new world, what sometimes you see is that you have way more information. We have way different scenarios to analyze that is impossible to lead alone. In these days, you really have to listen. You really have to listen to different perspectives, and you really need to assume that you are not the smartest person in the room. No, imagine you work in a financial institution, as some of you do. The amount of information you would manage now, it's incredible. You cannot make decisions without fully trusting your chief risk officer or your treasurer, and you won't have the details of all. So you would need to listen. And true listening involves being open to others' ideas, no? Which is the different part for us, the command and control generation. No? Be open to say, okay, I was wrong, we're gonna go your way. No? Which is in the past would have been perceived as a sign of vulnerability, probably, or weakness. At the end, obviously, we are the final decision makers, and we need to balance listening with courage. But at the end, agency is another key attribute of leadership, and we need to own our own decisions. When we go with confidence, sometimes when we evaluate the topic of confidence, is curious, because sometimes when we see many of us as leaders, is the people that gets their confidence more challenged, you know. And when you get your confidence more challenged, what tends to happen is that you start to uncover certain traits or certain triggers in your behavior. No, in this case, the recommendation is you need to let go of the internal fears. You need to understand that you belong, that you are there because you belong. At least someone trusted you, and then adapt, and instead of waiting to get a trouble, take agency over the factors that you have on your control and start changing and adapting. No, when we go to selflessness, and this is probably one of the more important factors in leadership today, we are used to thrive on organizations that reward individual recognition. No. But in more decentralized organization, where decision making is more fragmented, organizational trust is way more necessary. And the only way that you build organizational trust is by having selfless leaders that you say, okay, this person is not making the decision because it's good for himself or herself, but because it's good for all of us. It's good for the organization. And this become, and as we evolve as leaders, increasingly more important as we also go with less hierarchical organizations, which is what you suffer or what you will go through if you embark on digital and hence in more agile operative work. Then when we go with vulnerability, and this is probably also another important part, no? As leaders, we are people that will suffer enormous pressure, an enormous challenge to ourselves, and that might uncover traits from the past or unrecognized patterns that were established earlier in life. No, and sorry for my English, but we all have our own shit that we have to deal with in the past, no? And that uncovers, and that goes out at certain points in our life, especially when we're more challenged, no? And the workforce of the future doesn't tolerate that anymore. It's not unforgiving. They will be treated with the same respect that that they're gonna treat ourselves, and they don't. And this is a generation that we're also need to remember went to a different type of education, an education where emotional intelligence was work earlier in their careers. I go to my daughter's schools, know that they are like 6 years old, and every conflict is solved with the teacher, like with the professor, with conversation, and apologize. In our times it was okay. I see you outside after this finish, and we'll solve it. No, so they see us as dinosaurs. No, and we need to adapt. It's us that we need to adapt, because that's probably better for all of us. No, so how to open ourselves to that, and how to start being more vulnerable, putting us ourselves. Even have a little bit of levity, and making joke about ourselves or the situation in the moment of truth. It's important as the modern leader. And finally, and this is obviously one that stand the test of time: resilience. No, the ability to fail, compose again, and go back. Now more important, where we go to an age, especially in the digital age, where there is more experimentation, so we will experiment more constant failure as well. But we need to transform that failure into learning, and then with that resilience, you will have over and over again the opportunity to refine our value propositions. That's it. And finally, when we think on versatility, this is what you will see us as leader embracing ourselves in a journey of self-learning, self-reflection, self-curiosity, that then will help us instill our organization into a continuous learning organization. No? When we go quickly to the second set of behaviors that then we as a leader should try to instill on our organizations and in our teams, we see 6 traits. No, the first one, to make our organization more bolder. The second one, to empower our people in the decision making. The third one, to embed purpose and selflessness. No, to make this mission-driven organizations. The fourth one, encourage truth-telling. The sixth one, adopt fearless learning. And the sixth one, instill organizational empathy. No? If we go to inspire boldness, no? When we see the world today and where organizations are going, where we need to deal with more uncertainty, more changes in the offerings we can provide or we can receive to do our work. The old adage of huge, very strict strategic plans changes a little bit to more iterative cycle, where you pursue a very bold aspiration and you start drafting from day one small steps to achieve that aspiration. And that is a huge change organizationally, because we have been trained to it's better to deliver what you promise than to overpromise and underdeliver. No? So that mindset change, it requires us as leaders to role model, but also to be aware that the organization is wired one way and will probably need to rewire it in a different way. Second is empower people. This one, as you very well know, is obvious. Control is illusory. The times of command and control are a bit left behind, because thanks God we now have technology to exert that control through better information and metrics. And now it's about more how do we make our organization faster and more creative, so they can arrive with value proposition to our customers faster. No? The third one, as I told you, on purpose. People look to work in mission-driven organizations. No, if you even see probably in the past, when it was less politically oriented probably firm, but Tesla was about electrification, and they were able to attract top talent despite being ruling hours because it was only a mission-driven organization. Now it probably is different, but when you see that you have this mission-driven organization that have an objective above themselves, and that at the same time can create employee propositions that attract or that develop talent, that's where a talent want to go to work. So if you don't have a mission-driven organization, you don't leave that mission as a leader and with a selfless approach, it will be very hard to be able to bring the best talent of the future. Then encourage truth telling. This is probably also an important change. In the past, as CEOs, we used to be a little bit more secluded in our offices. As we go with more agile organizations, and if we want to influence the organization, we need to go to the front. Then we need to make sure that we need people that always tell us the truth, that tell us what is happening and what not, what things can be changed, because it will be the only way that we will be able to actually get the perspective, that we were telling at the beginning that we need to actually make the right decisions. So if we don't encourage this truth telling, we're fundamentally affecting our ability to lead effectively. As I say before, fearless learning. Once we embrace that habit of curiosity of ourselves, is okay. How do we instill this fearless learning in the organization? So how do we ensure that our employees have goals for themselves, developing goals for themselves, have the ability to renew their knowledge, and we have a plan to help them achieve that, especially in a world of today where AI is going to bring massive improvements, opportunities. Probably not so much these first 1 or 2 years, but as the tools get better, as the tool gets more personalized, the improvements, the productivity opportunities are going to be huge. And if we don't adopt that fearless learning in the organization, is going to be a massive disadvantage. And what do we need to do to impose that learning and to ensure that productivity? We also need to learn it ourselves. If we did a survey internally in McKinsey, and we created our own AI tool as well. That is actually, I would say, quite good and getting better every day. And we did a survey of who were using the tool or not. I think that 50% of the partners were using it. I wasn't one of those at the moment that the survey was done. Then I did it because I felt bad. It's quite good. That's why I say it's good. And 90% of the analysts were using it. So you start seeing the disconnect. You start seeing your teams getting more productive, and you don't even understanding what they're able to do. And that will be a leadership drag, if you actually don't understand the superpower your talent is developing. And finally, instill organizational empathy. I think that COVID was a game changer for that. People realized they wanted different. People realized they wanted more balance, and we need to live with that reality. In the reality on how do we ensure that we can ensure the best balance for our people, but at the same time ensure they have the apprenticeship and ensure they have the productivity they need. And this is probably the balance of the new equation you as leaders will have to solve going forward. So a bit in summary, and before I open for questions, we see 12 factors that we see as the modern leaders that we should adopt and excel on. Some of the insights from the journey of leadership. The first one is today's environment requires a more human-centered leadership. We can pass the presentation to all of you. Don't worry, you don't need to. Top leaders take an inside-out approach, and they start by managing themselves. Leaders must learn to balance competing demands. Leaders must embrace the challenge of a lifelong journey. And great leaders have great habits. Successful leaders embed their personal routines in organizational routines that enhance the performance of the full organization. No, some practices that we can adapt ourselves. No, some of the ones that I find more important for me is what they keep learning and they cultivate the physical and mental and spiritual emotional health. It's critical for me to balance ourselves, but there are others that obviously each of us can adopt, and also some of our practice that we need to achieve. Being for me probably 6 and 9 the ones that gets harder, but the ones I try to work the most.